Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. We're back. We were a little bit busy, but we have a big thing to talk about. My name is Kevin Lieber, and with me, as always, is Matthew Tabor.
I was busy. You literally push a button on a camera, talk, and then you just go play video games when you're done.
On my
phone.
Though. On my phone, not a camera. Yeah, just on my phone.
The hardest job in the world. The hardest job in the world, being a YouTuber or a streamer. Twitter will tell you that. We have more good news that like things are weirdly good for everybody. So it's not like a few weeks ago we decided like, oh, we're going to kick off every episode with sharing good news from the community. Yeah, that's a good thing. It wouldn't have been a bad idea, but it just happened. So Conrad, who's a mainstay and de facto overlord of the Discord, he filled a power vacuum. And he's been responsible with that for some time. Conrad just got a fat bonus at work for excellent performance. That's good. That's how you do things. You grind it out for a year. People realize that you're decent enough at your job that it's worth giving you a little bit more money so that we keep you. That's good. That's good news. And Jeff is coming off what I think is probably one of the best weeks of his life because he had Final Fantasy week. And this registered to me as being really good news because when he told me about that, because what was it, last Wednesday or so the game dropped?
Last Thursday, yeah.
Thursday. Yeah. I thought this is somebody who is enjoying a segment of their life and like understands how to enjoy themselves to the point where they know, I just want time to play this game. I'm going to look forward to it. It's going to drop and I'm just going to chill and play this. And I thought that's really good. Most people are just kind of scrambling day to day. Like, hey, this is a good sign. So it's just general life success, top to bottom. We like hearing when you've got something to say. So it can be Conrad getting a $7 million bonus, which coincidentally, when we found out his bonus amount, just oddly, a new tier on the Discord or on the Patreon just showed up in that exact amount. So Conrad, take a look. But yeah, if anything is good, it can be enjoying a video game or a show or a book. And it can be some of Isaac. That's the other one. Isaac, who is an escape room fanatic and designer and all of that stuff, just got a major upgrade professionally and moved to a new spot to do that. And it happened kind of out of the blue. And it was cool to see an opportunity fall into somebody's lap after they've worked for years to get it, and then have that person jump right on it and seize it and go do the thing. So this is everything we've talked about. We're seeing it.
Yeah, that's great. I do love Jeff's Final Fantasy VII vacation. That's my kind of vacation where you say, all right, I have these vacation days. I need to use them up. What am I going to use them for? Oh, I know. Take a full week off to play the new Final Fantasy VII game. Don't blame him because that is an awesome game. I've been playing it a little bit myself before bed each night after the long hours of what we've been doing for the last 2 months, which is launching the new Popular Science YouTube channel. So we could finally talk about it. We've been kind of hinting at it since January, really, that this was something that we had started to work on. And just a couple of days ago on Wednesday, we dropped the first 2 videos of the relaunch. So there's a video about Butler in a Box, which was an old voice automated or home automation virtual assistant that no one had ever heard of. I could talk a little bit more about the origins of how that video came to be a little later. And then the other one was about trepanning, which is our ancient and really contemporary trade of drilling holes in our skulls, in human beings' skulls. So that kicked off. We are thrilled by all of the comments, all of the messages, text messages from people who I haven't heard from literally in years who are excited about this new Popular Science relaunch. The whole thing has been, you're talking about things, being overwhelmingly positive. This has been an overwhelmingly positive thing for us, and it's been something we haven't been able to really share outside of really immediate family, until the launch actually occurred. So that's a little bit of a weight off my chest to just be able to say, yes, this is the thing that we're doing now, and look forward to a lot more of it, because we are full steam ahead with making videos on the Popular Science channel, and we're both just beside ourselves with this opportunity.
The first thing I want to say about it is that we are full steam, but we're also strangely steamier on everything else. There's a full slate of vsauce 2 videos on the way. And this was a big thing. It's like, are we going from A to B, new thing? And we just talked about all of these other people pivoting and doing new stuff, and which oddly had nothing to do with us doing it.
Yeah.
It didn't even occur to me. It really was just what we were saying. And we're like, we should talk about this because everybody is doing new stuff like that. And it just didn't add up in my mind. But yeah, before we get into the Popular Science stuff, which the story from beginning to now is nuts. It wasn't something that we've been working on for 2 years. It's not like that. We are not changing anything. We just aren't. We love the podcast. We love the normal vsauce 2 videos. Kevin, you're doing Mind Blow, Curiosity Box. I've got a couple things, and it wasn't a case of what are we replacing here? It's like, no. We just moved some Lego. Is it Lego or Legos?
Lego. Yeah. If you say Legos, a lot of people will be upset.
No one actually says Lego. So you move some Legos around.
The Europeans do. The Europeans will not put an S on Lego. It's a very American thing.
Dan, I forgot. Dan, you did the Lego build trial last year. Yeah, I suppose that you would probably use it correctly. I shouldn't have said Legos in the first place. I put myself into this mess. Well, we moved some things around and just kind of restructured what we do in the order we do it in, and what our days are like, and all of that. And we made enough room to do it all, and we're doing quite well with it.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing, and we obviously have had private conversations about how much are we able to juggle when it comes to all of these different projects? Are we able to continue to juggle all of them at once? And the answer to me is that I really like all of them. I genuinely like doing all of these things, and it's just a matter of how to keep it all going and do all of it. I just want to do all of the things. So that is the plan. We do have the new Mind Blow channel. So if you haven't checked that out yet, please go check out. Mind Blow has its own YouTube channel now for those uploads. And then, the Popular Science, that's going to be, weekly videos from here on out that we are making. We have a few formats. 2 of them you've seen already because they dropped the other day. That's, a documentary style. And then what I just loosely call a gadget style video. That is something that I am just very personally super interested in. When it comes to Popular Science, my history with that magazine really as a kid was being so excited and inspired by inventions. I mean, if you couldn't tell that I did the whole Mind Blow show for so long, it's fascinating to me what people come up with, whether they end up working out or not. Just the idea of innovation and invention, I always find fascinating. So now being able to go back through 150 years, and let's, be clear with our audience that Popular Science has been around for 150 years. I saw some people, not realizing, they thought, it's been around, since the 80s or something. It's no, it's been around since the 1800s, actually. So going through all of those and being able to pluck out stories and devices and things that failed, like the butler in a box, that people completely forgot about, that no one is talking about. I mentioned in the Butler in a Box video that there's no Wikipedia page for Butler in a Box. It's not referenced as a footnote in any Wikipedia page on, home automation or virtual assistant or anything. It's just gone. It's just not, it might as well have not existed. But the real story behind it is that it needed to exist, for us to get to the point where we have an Amazon dot in our kitchen that we ask, how do you cook chicken or whatever people use that for, play some music. So there is a treasure trove of butlers in a boxes to talk about and to bring back. And one thing that, I think we've both always really loved to do on Vsauce too, that will continue on Popular Science, is really uncovering forgotten cool things. It's not the most articulate way to explain what I mean, but it really is as simple as that. It is finding cool things people forgot about and has just been lost to time. And these things deserve their own showcase. They deserve their story to be told. And I'm excited for us to tell those stories.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the origins on your side. Can I be really descriptive about my memory of Popular Science?
Yes.
Can I do a sidebar here? So the living room in my parents' house at this time, this was in the 80s, there was an old TV, and on top of that was the TV that actually worked, which I've talked to Charles Kahn about this in the Discord. This is what TV stands are meant to be. The TV that you actually watch should be placed on top of the TV that you used to watch and doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
That's the proper way to do it.
It's a circle of life.
So it is. We had that, and then this blue rug, this blue carpeting that was oddly scratchy. And the light, we'd call it the barn light because that was the style. It was just one central light in the room with one bulb in it. And behind that is a brick fireplace, which all of this is the same except the carpet and the TV stand now. Next to the fireplace is a wood box. You have the box that you're putting the firewood in for that fireplace. Most of the time, though, it's not full of wood. 8 months out of the year, it's empty. Well, that's where a bunch of magazines went. And there were, I so distinctly remember what was in there. It would be U.S. News and World Report, some Sports Illustrated that my brother got, some Boy's Life that he got as well. Always the Murray McMurray catalog, which Murray McMurray is a chicken hatchery that has been around forever and is still around. I just linked it in the chat. We didn't have chickens then, so I don't understand why we always had the Murray McMurray catalog. I guess it was just to look at the chickens. But in that box, there were issues of Popular Science, and I remember the crazy stuff on the covers. The strange, like, can this bomber actually evade detection? It was just really a crazy time in terms of science and technology. And those covers were really fascinating. I wasn't reading those magazines then because I was too small, but I liked the covers. I liked that a lot. And so there is like a 35-year-old memory of what that publication is and its place on the literal hearth of the childhood home. So this stuff all adds up when we see how that matches with YouTube. And then we go even further back and say, what does it mean when a publication was around when Ulysses Grant was president? Like, this is quite nearly Civil War Abraham Lincoln territory. It's only a few years after. That's a big chunk of time in the fields of science and technology. So to take something that does go back that far and has had so many iterations and paths throughout a 20th century that was bonkers, and then seeing where it's at now and how it merges with what, Kevin, you've been doing on YouTube for 10 years. It's been wild. It's been insane. Yeah.
It's really exciting. So the first place that we started with this whole project was actually redesigning the logo. So if you go to the Popular Science YouTube channel now, you'll see this new logo that is very much an homage to old logos. So when I was going through all of the 150 years of logos of Popular Science, obviously it changed quite a bit, almost decade to decade. Sometimes within the decade, it would change too. But that was the first I kind of nerd out when it comes to branding and logos and graphic design, even though I can't do any of that. I can't draw at all. I mean, you've seen my cartooning on my my Instagram, but
the new Popular Science logo is a potato throwing up.
yeah, a potato just throwing up, and in the chunks it spells out the word. But I'm a big fan of that stuff. So that was where I wanted to start, is like, let's just start with the logo. And like, that's sort of, will inform the rest of it sort of, I don't know, tangentially.
And it does.
It does.
It does, though, because like you said, it's a strange combination of chic and new, but also 100 years old. Where you got, so Kevin worked on that with a designer at the company. It wasn't something I was a part of at all. But I got to see the progress, though, from the outside. And it really did take all of these samples historically for the magazine and somehow create a thing that was brand new, but also would have looked great in like 1925. And how you got that blend it was just remarkable to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's not me. That's the designer. His name is Tag. So shout out to Tag. I am in awe of Tag and people like Tag who are just ooze designer talent. So the logo that we landed on is really kind of heavily inspired by the 1930s. It was funny. I received a tweet the other day that was like, why is the logo like a 1980s sitcom? And I was like, I genuinely laughed at that because I was like, well, it is directly inspired actually by a 1930s Popular Science logo, and the 80s sitcoms, I'm sure, were similarly inspired by that sort of typography, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, so like I'm pasting, as you said this, I hadn't thought of that. I didn't see that tweet. Here's the All in the Family logo. And that was late 70s.
Yeah.
Mid 70s. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you do get a little bit of that flowery chicness. So it's actually, it's a weirdly inappropriate fit, that comment is. And at the same time, it's a very good fit.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah. So that's where we started, was with the new logo to really kind of go back to the legacy in a lot of ways of Popular Science, because I think that's where the interest in the brand really begins. That's where my interest begins, is combing through those magazines. So that was step 2, was that we actually started going on eBay and buying just piles and piles and piles of Popular Science magazines, which is one of the things that was actually really great about working on Popular Science in particular, is that these magazines are quite accessible right now. What's the cutoff? I think the cutoff is like 1940 or something. Anything older than that tends to get a little rarer and a little more expensive, but almost anything from the 1950s on, like, people are just selling in droves, and you could just grab them and they're all amazing. Amazing.
They're awesome. Yeah, they're awesome. And you're right about that timeline. Kind of World War II is the cutoff, where before that, then it gets more expensive, especially because the covers, they were so iconic. They were really incredible art. They weren't photos at that time, and they weren't photos until like probably the late 60s is when they were actual photos for the covers. So you'd get these almost sci-fi art covers on everything before the 40s. And you can imagine how crazy some of those sci-fi things are. So like I sent one to you earlier today from 1917, where it's a concept of a guy, and this is during World War I, so it's topical. A guy is behind a giant wheel. It's probably like 10 feet high, and there's a little wheel in front of it. So it's sort of like those old style bicycles that have the big wheel and the little
penny
wheel.
farthing.
Is that what it's called?
I think so. Yeah.
So he's in the back, and he's got, the doughboy helmet, and he's in uniform, and he's like zooming across the battlefield with tanks in the background, and he's got a machine gun that he's blasting. And it's just, what in the hell is this thing? What is this scene? And it's really stunning artwork. It's fantastic. So yeah, before about the 40s, Obviously, magazines survive very poorly. Water and humidity does a number on them, much worse than books. So you get fewer of them around, and also they're a lot more collectible. I mean, people really want the covers on these. But anything past World War II, we're talking like, if you're the slightest bit patient about it, $2 an issue. So you can spend, $30 all in with tax and shipping and get a year's worth of magazines that are incredible to read. From like the cover before you've opened it to the last page of the thing is as good as any novel. I don't know what you've been sipping, but you've got it all wrong. It's time to commit to the leaf. We've embraced the smoothness and surprising pick-me-up that tea provides. I literally drink it all day long, nearly a gallon a day, and it powers me through research, script writing, and forums on websites that I refuse to name here. But we don't drink normie NPC tea. We drink cultured and refined anime tea from the Dragon's Treasure. Kevin still likes the gunpowder green called Space Cowboy, and I've sampled nearly 40 Dragon's Treasure teas at this point. Lately, I've been slamming black teas like Kentucky Bourbon and Liquefied Berserk Despair. Scottish Breakfast is deep and peaty, and I smooth it over with Sebastian's Morning Earl Grey, which has the best vanilla cream taste I think I've ever had in a cup. Give me a pot of that with a hot meatball sub from Sal's Pizza and Brooks Barbecue Chicken to wash down my last meal on death row. I highly recommend the sampler packs. You'll want to try everything just like I did. I literally have not had one tea that I wouldn't be happy to reorder. The Dragon's Wings membership fuels new tea experimentation, and the Tea of the Month Club provides a regularly scheduled surprise. And when you order from the Dragon's Treasure using code CREATE, you'll get 10% off your order. That's 10% off using the code CREATE at thedragonstreasure.com. The link's in the description.
Yeah. Yeah, to the point where those illustrations, I think, are being sold as prints, actually, because people want to buy and collect and hang those on their wall. So I want to talk a little bit about the journey of making this Butler in a Box video. So, because that's one of the videos that you can all watch right now on the Popular Science channel. It's one of the videos that we launched with. That the way that the progression of that video is actually the progression of my experience making the video. And I've never made a video really that was like that, except perhaps the pasta chair video that we did in Rome many years ago that ended up sort of being like a personal documentary style of, the progress of working through this concept. That sort of really was similar, but
a video diary.
Sure. Yeah. Like a video diary. Like I started here, then I stumbled upon this, and then this went wrong. And that was really what happened with Butler in the Box. Is like, I did actually just stumble upon it in an old Popular Science magazine, was completely curious about what in the world this thing was that I had never heard of, that there was a talking box in 1985 that would, turn your lights on and off, or your oven or your TV on and off, or your sprinklers, or any of the number of things it would do. And immediately went to eBay to see if I could get one. Like that day, popped on eBay, typed in Butler in a Box, and just crossed my fingers that someone out there had saved one of these things and was looking to offload it onto someone like me. And serendipitously, there were a few, and as you would expect, most of them seemed pretty haggard, missing components and not quite sure if it works, sold as is, and that sort of thing, which I would obviously avoided right away. However, I found one still in the original styrofoam. It didn't have the box. I actually, you know what? I don't know what the box looked like.
I can't recall seeing it in anything.
I looked at absolutely everything there is to possibly find on Butler in a Box over the last 2 months, and I never saw a box.
Maybe it didn't have one, and that styrofoam unit was just shipped in a brown cardboard box. I mean, that's quite possible.
Okay. Yeah, perhaps it was. But I got that gigantic styrofoam, clamshell wedge full of the butler and its accessories and the training tape and the phone cord and the insane manual that I actually have right here next to me. You could show it to everybody in the Discord. This baby, this book, this ridiculous novel that you have to go through in order to use the thing.
You saying you bought it on eBay. So I don't know if I've mentioned this on a podcast. I'm sure I've talked a lot in the Discord about it, but I'm a prodigious eBayer. I like a lot of things on the eBay. I track a lot of things, but I really like talking to the people selling them. That's what I like the most, is finding out how they got something. I got these World War II posters a week ago, and a guy wrote a note telling me that they were his dad's in a hardware store in Toledo, Ohio, and how he had them hung on the wall. I love that. So I talked to the eBayers, and I hadn't thought about this until now, but I wish we could have talked to the person who sold you this, because there is no way they didn't get the notification of that sale and think, you've got to be kidding me. Some absolute sucker finally bought this.
I didn't even try to haggle on it. I just whatever he, wanted to sell it for, wanted for it, I just, buy it now right away. I just clicked it instantly. I actually thought that as well. I'm like, two things while we were making the video, I thought was, one, I hope the person who sold the butler in the box to me sees this, because the screenshot of the eBay auction is in the video. So there's no denying that it was that person's unit. And then the other thing,
you got to send them the link. You can just message them from the eBay interface and send them the link to the video and say thanks.
Yeah, I could definitely do that.
That'd be awesome.
And then, of course, the other thing is when Gus Searcy sees it and what his response will be, because he will see it. And I'm just anticipating, what he will say. I'm hoping he leaves a comment on the video, actually, because he has a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a YouTuber.
He made a lot of videos, especially during the lockdown. He went into cooking. Made a lot of cooking videos then. But he's got a range of stuff on his channel, and it would be I think he would like the video. I think that I think it portrays the complexity of Gus in a very real way. And it as crazy as his story is, which if you haven't seen the video, his life story is like, it's very hard to believe if you just lay it out. So, he was making a lot of money trading stocks when he was a teen. He owned a 7-Eleven at 21. He had a condo or something. He was bought property. And then he had this dog, right? The Frisbee catching dog.
Yeah, he was performing at halftime of sporting events with, and getting paid to do it, getting paid good money to perform with his Frisbee catching dog. By the way, you forgot to mention that all the while he was a successful magician.
Fantastic magician. Yeah. And as we looked into things, as much as you can, because that wasn't the focus of the video, but it all checked out. That was the crazy thing, is like you'd look up and find a thing, be like, yeah, okay, that is actually real. That guy's had a weird life.
Well, one of the things with during the research process that blew me away was finding the newspaper article about him and the Frisbee catching dog. Because up until then, the Frisbee catching dog thing was just a single sentence on his website that like, yeah, I also had this Frisbee catching dog. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't know what that means. And then lo and behold, there's an entire newspaper article about him and this dog. I'm like, oh my God.
It's real.
It's not only real, it was written about in the newspaper. Yeah.
The cannon on a submersible that shot fish food to fish, that was a thing that he invented too. So yeah, there's a lot there, and I think you portrayed the whole process and people in a really intriguing way. So I hope when he sees it, he likes it and does leave a comment. That'd be cool.
Well, and I'm always obsessed with sort of, this might come as a surprise to vsauce 2 viewers, but I'm very obsessed with paradoxical situations. And the butler in a box to me is in itself a completely paradoxical situation, because at the same time, that device was absolutely amazing. It was flat out amazing what it could do for its time, and actually for about 2 decades there. Like what that thing could do in terms of you training it, you naming it responding to you, it being able to, the thing had, there was a lot more it could do that I couldn't really get into in the video, but you could set all these different timers so that it could control, things set to timer to turn lights on or raise or lower your heat, your thermostat. It could do like so many things.
The macros too. So you could group things together, just like with my Amazon device, which I won't name because it will set it off. I'll say turn downstairs off, turn downstairs on. You could link those devices into a group with the butler in a box. That's weirdly sophisticated given the time. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, you could do something like party time, and it would turn on, like a disco ball and your stereo and dim
What would
dim
your
the
party
lights.
time be? If you had to do a party time command right now, Kevin, what would happen to your room?
My party time is the Final Fantasy VII Vacation. I think that's my party time. But the other half of that paradox is that it sucked. Like this thing absolutely sucked in so many ways. So you have like the one side of it being this futuristic home of the future Jetsons style device, Star Trek device thing straight out of sci-fi. And at the same exact time, it was just such a piece of crap. and it was so expensive, and it was so annoying, and it was so limiting in actually sort of the things that you really hoped it could do, and it just couldn't. And it was just so like cripplingly complex to even set up to begin with, as far as like, I just mentioned this briefly in the video, but I really probably could have gone deeper into how absolutely stupidly annoying this thing would have been to use throughout a home because of the fact that it could only be used with a series of speakers and microphones. Meaning like you would have to set up the device, say in your living room, in like a corner of the living room, right? And then in that corner, have a speaker and a microphone so that if you were like upstairs, right, and you wanted to turn your TV on upstairs or turn the lights off upstairs, you would then have to talk into a microphone upstairs to talk to the butler downstairs so it could hear you. And then the butler would talk through the microphone downstairs and then go through the speaker in your bedroom so that you could hear it. I mean, the whole thing is just, no one would do this. No one would actually do this. So couple that with the fact that it was thousands and thousands of dollars to buy the thing, and then thousands and thousands of dollars to actually make it automate your home between all the modules you had to buy for it and plug those all in and then set them to specific house codes and unit codes and then train the whole thing to understand what it was and what it wasn't and make sure it all worked. And you have to name every single device a different thing and remember that. And if you can't, write it down in like the back of the manual. Let me two things to sort of exemplify why this thing was so dumb. Okay. One is that in order to turn off the lights, it was about an 11 or 12 second process. Okay. It wasn't like Alexa turned lights off and it turns the lights off. That takes as long as it takes for you to say those words, and it responds and carries out the command. Rewatch the ending of Butler in the Box because I did use it to turn on the light at the end of the video. You have to wake the thing up, then it responds to you to let you know that it's awake. Then you have to tell it what you want it to control, the device, so like lamp. Then it responds to acknowledge that it recognizes that it heard you, and then you have to give it the command to what to do to the lamp, which is, say turn it on. and then it responds to you telling it what to do, and then it turns the lamp on. This takes 11 or 12 seconds, okay? How long does it take for you to stand up and go turn the lamp on? 12 seconds? Less than that? I don't know.
But you've seized on the critical point here, which is
wait. The other thing, Matt, before you seize on my critical point, is a point that my dad made, which I thought was fascinating, which is all of the setup of this thing takes so long that in order to get back the time just that you spent setting the thing up, it would take you years.
Yeah, it absolutely would. But I mean, that time is not a raw, consistent value either. So, for example, how it feels right now for me to go downstairs and turn the lights off is very different than when it's like -5 out at midnight in January and it's like 52 downstairs and I'm in bed and I've forgotten to turn the kitchen lights off and I can just say, turn downstairs off. At that point, the 10 seconds that it would take is worth like 20 minutes to me. So there's that factor, but you said, stand up and go do the thing. Well, that's part of how Gus pitched this as being a piece of assistive technology for people who, for example, couldn't do that. And if you had mobility issues, if you had a disability that made it difficult or an injury that made it difficult to do some of these simple things, then all of a sudden that 12-second, 15-second exchange is way better than figuring out how to do it otherwise. So there is a segment of people who really benefited from this. And we got a comment too. We got a comment from a guy maybe this was on the CellGen Studios video. Somebody who sold them in the past and mentioned how, it was great to see some of the people who had needs that were beyond simple convenience really benefit from this kind of thing. And that was probably the coolest part to me, was seeing the multiple purposes for this kind of thing, where it's like, all right, this makes a lot of sense for some people. And then there are other people who just want to kind of have a Jetson style house and piss away their money on, something out of the Sky Mall catalog. So you get these two radically different ways to approach the same device. One of them is really frivolous and kind of worth making fun of. And the other one is a really serious part of somebody's life. I love that contrast.
Yeah. So it was like a top comment on one of CellGen Studios' video. The other thing is that as I was doing research, there were a bunch of old threads on strange tech forums about this that I read. And what you said came up a few times. There were a few comments from people who had a disability, and the butler in a box really made a difference to their quality of life. It really did. So yeah, absolutely, like 100%. It was amazing for the people who really did benefit from the things that it could do. So, I mean, that's why that video could have been 40 minutes, I think, easily.
Yeah, it could have. And that's why I like your approach to this topic, which, so this format is 98% you. I don't deal in technology or gadgets. I drove home like 2 days ago, and down my road, there's a gang of Amish hauling logs with horses. They were doing some logging and removing trees about 2 properties down.
And you were wistful about it, wishing that was you?
I was. It was a good day, yeah. And they're out there, cutting and dragging, yeah. And I'm, speeding home so I can check my email. God, it was brutal. But that's tech to me. So anyway, this is your thing, and the way you approach it is this. I don't know how you'd categorize it, but if you were a bumbling fool, it would be a bad video. It just wouldn't be that interesting. You're not a bumbling fool. If you were Alan Pan, it would also be a different kind of video. You would dissect this thing in 30 seconds and go into, insane depth about, components and this and that. That would be very natural to you. It's a really good thing for this video format that you're not either of those two. So you're like a really elevated version of a normal person, right? So, and you showed that process where it's like, I took this thing out of the box. I'm somebody who wants to legitimately use it. I'm not a low-end user. I'm not like the most insane tech wizard in the world. I'm kind of, normal plus in terms of how I'm coming into this device and my familiarity with this technology. And that's awesome. That's awesome because then you can show the range of up to Alan Pan and down to the occasional bumbling fool, because that's reality. That's like everything I open and try to figure out how to use. I kind of cycle between those two. And so when I watched the draft of the video, like, this is so real. I feel like I'm watching somebody drop, 3 paychecks in 1983 on this thing that they don't even know how it works or how it's going to work for them. Figure out what it even is and how to do it. That was exceptional. I really liked that. So it was a super genuine approach there, and the device itself occupies such a bizarre place in the evolution of all of it that it was really hard not to be compelling.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad that you think so, because I did struggle a lot with, aspects of it, and all of it's true as far as having to, bring in. I mean, look, the thing with my dad just showing me to turn the volume up, it's like, I couldn't have made that up if I wanted to, because it makes me look stupid, but I was stupid. Like, that was a dumb thing, but that is, and this about me, but that is the exact type of mistake that I often make with things, is for whatever reason, I ignore, Occam's razor. I just always skip over like the obvious thing and go straight into, there must be some extremely complicated reason for this. I don't know why. It's such a defect in my brain.
But everybody does this. There's a thing that took, what is it, like the CR232, 223, whatever batteries.
The port was, the batteries were just, are you talking about the batteries?
No, I'm talking about a totally different device. So like one of those coin type batteries. There's a thing that I couldn't get to work for like 20 minutes, and I could not figure out what the problem was. And it was because, they put that really thin piece of plastic in, so the battery's not activated when it's in the box, and you have to slide that out, and then all of a sudden it connects and works. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So everybody has those moments all the time where you're just you just hit a wall of knowing what the hell is going on and why the thing won't work. And then it's like some equivalent of, did you try plugging it in? Yeah. But that's the real thing. And, it's even easier to overlook those things when you're overwhelmed by the complexity of a confusing thing, and you untangling the instructions. And that's real. That's real. And I like that.
Yeah, the instructions are so overwritten. And then at the same time, there were things that seemed like I should know that they didn't mention at all. So yeah, it was such a weird, confusing mess of, a page and a half on how to input the pin. And then there's like nothing at all almost about like the backing up the memory and all of that. That was like, 2 sentences. It's like, that's kind of seems important. So anyway, that was the Butler in a Box video. Already just yesterday, purchased a whole lot of stuff for the next tech video, the next gadget video, which I will not be telling you what that is about. You'll just have to wait and see.
But I will say that it's got its own super weird behind the scenes story. There's this kind of semi-eccentric all over the place Gus Searcy and Butler in a Box, and it's a different situation for this next piece of tech, and it's equally interesting despite being a different setup. And so that's the element to these videos that I really, really like, which is every piece of tech, or even ideas for tech, are a function of a bunch of non-tech things. the era that we're in, other like where it fits in the line of tech that came before it, and also the individual people involved. You cannot separate these things from tech the way you can with some other things. There's no personal context, or it's not as relevant, the personal context, in something like a raw scientific discovery. Figuring out that hydrogen exists is less dependent on the personality of the person who's discovering it. Whereas the idea to design and pursue the creation of a device is all people. The implementation of that idea is all people and all the context of those people's lives. So I don't see that not being a facet of these videos going forward, because everybody's story is interesting in its own way.
Yeah. So, I'm excited to continue that. Obviously, we have the documentary style format. The trepanning was the first one in that series, which involved a watermelon with googly eyes and going through the different methods and tools that have been used throughout the centuries to perform trepanation. Mm-hmm. And then another couple of formats that I don't want to spoil yet, but you have to like and subscribe to the Popular Science channel to find out more.
Can I half spoil one? I want to half spoil one.
Half spoil? Okay. How do you half spoil something? I guess I'll find out right now.
I think I can do it.
Okay.
I think I can do it. One of the formats is a sort of second cousin of the introductions to guests on this show. It's not entirely dissimilar from the style. And that's exciting to me, that there will be a format that really has a good time with the storytelling.
Yeah.
So if you like the intros that we do on the Create Unknown for guests, there's a format you might like.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's a half spoiler.
It's a good half spoil.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't actually tell anything, but it gives a hint.
Yeah. A little taste. So yeah.
Tickles the pickle just a little bit.
Tickles the pickle. I thought we didn't have to go to tickle the pickle. Oh, I'm not going to bring that up. Let's just move on. Okay. So
what could you possibly have just held back?
It was a discussion that I had with the patrons recently, that I think you probably just should become a patron in order to get access to those sort of discussions. But the other thing that has been really fascinating to me that I wanted to just bring up while we're talking about the launch and, our new roles with Popular Science has been the feedback and the outpouring of excitement from others. Now, this might not be at all exciting or interesting to listeners, so bear with me a bit. But I was actually, we were talking about this, Matt, this morning, that it's very weird to me, the perception of being a YouTuber in 2024. Oh. Okay. When I was doing YouTube full time in 2012, I distinctly remember, talking to Michael and Jake and whomever about how, in 2012, YouTubers are kind of seen as this sideshow, this sort of superfluous, weird, fake thing that's never going to go anywhere. This flash in the pan sort of thing that, well, what are you actually going to do in 5 years, right? I mean, I actually had a consulting job, consulting for a company on their YouTube channel in like 2014, maybe. I'm so bad with dates in the past, but let's just say 2014.
I can't help you with remembering it because this is back when you were like hiding side gigs from me.
No, was I?
I didn't know what you were doing in the world.
Oh, okay. Well, as I was hiding this side gig from Tabor, I was consulting for a startup in Los Angeles, actually. And I got overwhelmed with work and eventually I had to quit. Like I had to tell them like, look, I can't do this. I'm too busy. Like I cannot do this anymore. And the owner of the business was disappointed. He liked what we were working on. He liked having me as part of sort of the team and all of that. And I will never forget sort of the look on his face where he genuinely was kind of concerned, like, what are you going to do with this YouTube thing? Like, where do you see this going? Because to him, it was like, this is a dead end. Like, you will have your 15 minutes and then it'll be over and you will have nothing to fall back on. There are no skills you will have developed. There are no connections you will have made. There is no greater industry that you have been a part of. You will just be unemployed and begging for work in the the not too distant future. That was really how he took it. Prior to that, I had another instance in which a general manager at a really large club that I worked at gave me a similar kind of talk when I told him I was quitting that job, because he saw me moving up in the ranks at this restaurant company, becoming a manager, maybe becoming a manager at one of their locations, or an assistant manager, then manager, just like working up the corporate ladder. So when I told him I was quitting and I was getting out of it completely and I was going to do this YouTube thing, once again, he was like, he told me I was making a bad decision to my face. It was like, dad taking you like under his wing and saying like, listen, son, I know you think this is a good idea. I'm looking out for your best interest here. And I think you're making a mistake. Okay. Now that was probably 2011. Okay. So then I ran into the same thing in, 2014. And I kept thinking, 5 years from now, the temperature will have shifted. The paradigm will have shifted. And being a YouTuber will be seen as more of a real job, like an actual career, like it is the end goal. There isn't some other thing that you're sort of waiting to do or to get hired for. Like, this is the thing, and I'm successful with it, and I'm happy doing it. 2024, okay, and I don't think that really has changed.
Not at all.
I just monologued there, so I just want to throw it to you. Do you think that has changed?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. So we went, you actually witnessed this a couple weeks ago, where there are things in the state in which I live where you to procure them, you need background checks to make sure you're a decent person. And you have to list your occupation on these. And I thought about this moment so much because I always stumble on this. And the first time I stumbled on it, I was like, because there isn't a clean way to say anything. And that's for me. It's even murkier, because I can always say like, I'm a writer, some generic thing like that. I don't know what kind of thing you can throw out there that would be something that somebody wouldn't think twice about. You're in a difficult spot on that. But I stumbled for a while, and I was like, video producer. And the people like laughed because they were like, sounds like you make porn. And I'm like, it just kind of does. But I thought, Ducky says, I'm a writer producer for a media company. That would be normal if I were in any city. I could say that and nobody would think twice. But out in a place where there are no media companies, where the hell are you writing and producing? It doesn't even seem like a real thing. So it didn't occur to them that I wasn't being goofy about it, because, people do say funny things on the profession answer for that, because it's not actually, they don't actually verify or look at it. So people are like, I'm a zookeeper, just whatever. But it didn't even occur to them. And that's what hit me days after that, is I'm like, this sounds funny to them because it's so not real at all. And we've talked in the past that when you tell people you do, anything on YouTube, they're thinking that it's some long form TikTok-y, whatever at best. And you've got some channel called like Jelly Boner 69 and you're not a real person, which is a lot of YouTube. It's a lot of these platforms. It's not what you do. You do serious content. But it's still not taken seriously. And I had a similar moment to what you just described, where Jelly Boner 69. So I had a surgical consult like 6 years ago. And it really kind of bothered me because the guy's making small talk. He's looking at my hip. I had mobility issues in my hip. He asked me, what do you do? So I write videos for a YouTube channel. And he said, you can make a living off that? And I was like incensed at the time because I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if my profession was a never-ending supply of sick people who depended on me not to die? You have no shortage of customers, don't you? Like, unfortunately, I don't have that kind of security. But this is a professional. He wasn't old either. He's probably 40. This is a reasonably aged, sharp guy with a professional career who's not trying to be insulting at all. But it didn't even occur to him that this was a viable life. I'm like, yeah, man, they're math videos. Like, they're science videos. And that wasn't that long ago. I ended up not pursuing the surgery, by the way, because I felt funny about the whole consult. I didn't like that. Turns out I didn't need it either. It's like cured myself. How about that? Who's the doctor now? But no, we're still there, where I say a thing and some people laugh because it sounds like porn, or, you say a thing and somebody thinks you're in a phase goofing around like you're in your 20s with a band hoping to make it. And they're like, no, come on, man. Just, like go become an accountant, or like get a stable job and pay your mortgage and have a family. Like, do something real with your life. I think it's getting worse, actually, because now the age of people who are, really big on all these platforms skews younger and more to the entertainment side than it ever has. So when you think who's killing it on YouTube, it's like, a 17-year-old, who's crushing on TikTok, not old men, not 40-something men who read old magazines and think about math. It doesn't occur to people that it's like that. So in a way, it's getting better. And in a way, we're getting further from what the core of these platforms is, which makes it that much harder for them to take us seriously as having a career in that. If we'd said we manage those people, then it's like, oh, yeah, some adults got to do it. Like that sounds like a great, a very real gig. But being somebody who's on one of those platforms, it almost sounds less realistic than ever.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the age element of it. You're right. Yeah, it sounds like, oh, you are a hobbyist at best, and I pray for your financial security moving forward, because how are you going to pay for health insurance when you're making goofy YouTube videos?
But that's how most people are thinking too, is some degree of security, a thing that's going to be there in the same way a year from now, which is not a crazy thing to think about. Like, most people don't apply to a job thinking it's a really short-term gig. It's like, no, I want to do this thing and then develop in it and maybe advance and just do more. And like, there's going to be a trajectory for me here. And there's no obvious trajectory with these jobs, not when we're talking to normal people. And they think it's an extremely volatile thing where, the money can stop at any time, which it can. The health insurance and the basics in your life can be interrupted at any time. That is true, but it doesn't occur to them that there can be stability in it too.
There's also no barrier to entry to doing it. So it's impossible in a lot of ways to discern, a 13-year-old making their Lego videos versus us spending 2 months, researching something for popular science. So there's that part of it as well, right? That it's like, well, anybody could do that. There never was someone with any level of authority who said, you're the person for this job, which really conveys a much different, I know, but that conveys a much different message, I think, to someone who, is like a doctor because they went through 8 years of medical school or whatever. And the school said, here's your diploma. Yes, you can be, and the residency and all that stuff. And someone else had to say, here's your credential. You can now do this. There is none of that with YouTube other than an audience of, essentially faceless people watching your content.
You also can't qualify it in a way. As you're describing this, I'm thinking, well, what could you say that would give that context that they would need to take it seriously? And you can't actually say those things, because if you said, oh, I'm a YouTuber with 4.5 million subscribers, you're kind of an asshole. That's a anything that you would use to qualify this sounds like a brag thing.
Yeah, I've always been really embarrassed by that, to be perfectly honest. Like if I'm like at like my cousin's wedding and we're just making chit chat with like people I don't know, and they say, "What do you do?" You know, and I inevitably say like, I usually say I make like science and math educational videos. Oh, where? I'm on YouTube. Like, oh yeah. So are you like famous? That's what they always say. And it's like, can we talk about something else, please?
Yeah, there's no qualifier that's going to make you look good. And by the way, it's really common to go to something like a VidCon and you meet somebody who you don't know and they tell you what they do and they're like, yeah, we've got, 200,000 subs or something. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's the equivalent of like, I don't know, if you met somebody and they're like, oh, I'm a lawyer and I make this much a year. You can't lead with those things and have people take you seriously or like you. So all the things that would show to them that it's a serious, stable endeavor are things that make you sound like a goofball. So you really can't do that. And I was thinking about what it kind of sounds like. There's no, if you're a football player and you're like, yeah, I play football for, the 49ers. That's awesome. That's a real job. It's clear that you're at a level where it is a real job. Now imagine saying, so what are you up to in life? Well, I play football. Oh, wow. Who do you play for? Well, kind of anybody who will watch. I kind of hope they like watching me play football. Where do you do that? Just around. Yes, I go to the park and just play football, and I hope that enough people enjoy me and throw money into a hat and I can live off that. That's what it sounds like.
Oh, it's like busking. Yeah.
Busking. That's perfect. That's right. It sounds
like busking.
Busking.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a breakthrough.
Huh.
That's a really good breakthrough.
So the point of this conversation is that what does not sound like busking? Working for popular science does not sound like busking. That is an institution, a media institution that everybody knows.
Good job.
Everyone has seen that magazine, on their coffee table or at the dentist's office or, waiting for the doctor somewhere at some point in their life. They've come across this magazine. They know what it is. It's real. So when you say, yes, I'm now making, and it can still be the same thing. It's making YouTube videos, but now I'm making YouTube videos for popular science. All of a sudden it's like, you finally got a real job. I'm so proud of you. But that is and has been the reaction. And it's been nice to hear from these people. But that's why this conversation is happening, because it is very funny and interesting, the difference when you're doing the same exact thing really on your own and building your own brand and your own small business and doing things for yourself versus doing it the same thing for something, a media outlet that people have heard of before. Now it's like, oh, I know what that is. That is a real thing.
I've seen this back when many years ago when I had a semblance of a real life, which I have again, as you've just described. I'm a real person now for the first time since probably 2008. I would go to conferences and things like that that had a lot of academics, and most of them have an institutional affiliation. They're a professor somewhere. And then you get the guys who, you would call them independent scholars. They researched the thing and wrote books and whatever. And those men and women always had a tough time sort of not being taken seriously by the affiliated people, but they had to qualify what they do. So it's like, oh, my area of interest is Civil War history. And, I wrote a book in this and that. And it's like, well, does your book sell? I mean, like, do you make a living off the sales of your writing? The people who say, I'm an associate professor at SUNY Albany, they don't have that problem. They are just a professor and everybody knows exactly what they do. But the independent scholars, which I was in that category at that time, where I didn't have a clear affiliation and I was doing writing with different people. Nobody ever knew and nobody ever took me seriously. They didn't at all. So much so that I actually distinctly remember the very first person who took me seriously in that industry. His name is Sandy Kress. who was a member of the Bush administration in the early days. He was an education policy guy, delightful guy in Texas. But he responded to something I wrote about policy, and he took it seriously enough to respond in a serious way. And I wrote him an email years later, because eventually, you come across these people again, and I'd corresponded with him. 5-6 years later, I was like, Sandy, I got to tell you that you were the first person ever to take me seriously. That was a big, big deal to me. And when his tweets pop up on my feed, I remember that moment. But that's how hard it is, where if you have literally any job in the world that's like actually affiliated or has a title, people know what you do and they're comfortable with that. And it's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, we've never really had that.
They know how to categorize it in their minds, really. They know what box to put you in, right? I think it makes it easier for them to understand who you are. Okay, we might be getting too conceptual on this, but I do think that's probably what it comes down to. We've talked, not on this podcast, about the power of naming things, right? I don't remember how that came up, yeah. but you and I went on some sort of weird tangent about the power of naming things. And, I brought up Harry Potter and Voldemort and the end of the Neverending Story, where Bastian has to name the princess of Fantasia.
Moonchild.
What is that?
That's the name.
Oh.
She is the Moonchild.
Oh, right.
I happened to stumble on that this morning, reading a comment on one of the new Popular Science videos, because somebody referenced vaguely Neverending Story, and I was looking up the name of Gamork. And in the search results, there were people discussing Sebastian naming her Moonchild and how weird that was. So I didn't know that until like 6 hours ago.
Well, because I watched that movie so many times as a kid, but I don't think it's decipherable in the movie. I think he just kind of shouts a thing. And maybe that was on purpose, or maybe I just never understood that he was saying Moonchild, but that might be a book thing, which I did read. I did read the book a few years ago, and the movie is much better. The author of the book hated the movie. Now we're on like Neverending Story talk, but yeah, that's a little bit of a side note. And actually, you and I are friends with the guy who translated the screenplay of the Neverending Story into English from German, I believe. So
he is one of the funniest people I have ever met in my life. He also wrote Liar, Liar. That's a big one. And the 1994 blockbuster Little Rascals. He also wrote that.
And I think Heartbreakers with Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt. I think he wrote that too.
Yep. He's fantastic. But yeah, he did that initial translation, which I believe he had something like 5 days to do it. And also didn't know German to like a perfect degree.
And he was like a zilch nobody who was asked to do this, and he did it. So it kind of like goes back to our whole sort of TCU ethos of, when you're a zilch nobody, just do everything and anything that you can to get work and move up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it turned into a fantastic career for somebody who was obviously as outrageously talented then as he is now. And that flipped the switch.
Yeah.
That was good.
It did.
But yeah, it's a different, the whole ethos of all of it is so different. And one thing we actually probably should have led with, for context's sake, is the insane timeline that we had on all of this. This was not a planned thing. It didn't develop over time. Around Christmas time, the opportunity fell to us. It's like, we actually were engaging in all sorts of other things, planning for the new year, with the calendar year switching over and all that. We had a year planned out in a completely different way. And then like 2 days before Christmas, this hits and just like upends that entire plan. And it was as quick. It's like, let's have a conversation and then another one, like a Zoom call kind of thing, and see if we match up. And then, we'll work out the details and then get started after Christmas. And we actually had to get started before any of it was even a yes, not official, but the timing was so compressed that the moment we started talking about it, we started work without even knowing if it was going to happen. Because if it did, we were going to have to hit the ground running on it. And then through January, where it is out of nowhere coming up with several different formats for a publication where that legacy all of a sudden is a liability because you have to try to understand 150 years of material. If it were 5 years old, you could spend an afternoon and scroll through and get a sense of what's up. But no, it's sort of like, here's the Bible, figure out what it means. And then come up with 4 good shows about the Bible. And then get production rolling too, because again, these things take a while. It's a completely different process. We have to get people to do that. We had to do it on top of all the work that we'd committed to and do normally. This is why we had to skip a couple episodes in January and February, because we got bogged down, and we both have worked from waking up until going to sleep. That's not an exaggeration, is it?
No, it's not. And yeah, we're still sort of in that mode for sure, but that's okay. Because like I said earlier, all of this stuff is really exciting. It's like, okay, I'm definitely going to clock in 14 hours today, but it's 14 hours of things that I want to make as good as possible. And I know a lot of people will like, and it's worth it. So yep. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to hate my life. I'm going to just try to get as much done today to set myself up for tomorrow, to try to get as much done tomorrow to set myself up for the next day. That's really what it comes down to. And I'm just excited about sort of the resources that we have now, the team that we have built and are continuing to build in order to make all of the efficiencies for this, run as smoothly as possible and to just get the best videos out that we can. And I don't recall if we mentioned this at the beginning, but and maybe just briefly, the comments so far just on the 2 videos we launched with have been glowing. They've been some of the best comments that we've, I think, ever received. Some who weren't even familiar with what popular science is. And that was really interesting to me. It was like, I don't know what this channel is, but I really love these videos and what you're doing here. So the big takeaway is we are going to be making a ton of content from now on. And I really hope that all of the sort of things that we've talked about for years on this podcast, you can see in action. It is not just talk. We're not sitting around bloviating about what other people should be doing, because that annoys me to absolutely no end. Or the people who just sit around and they tell you what you should be doing and what someone else should be doing. And meanwhile, I'm going to do none of those things. It's like, no, yeah. If we're not working harder than anyone, then there's a problem, because that's my goal.
Yeah. There's no other way to say that, is that like it's very important, I think, to both of us that we live everything we say. We only say the things that we say because that's what we're actually doing anyway. I can't recall anything that we've said or weighed in on with anybody else even that isn't just what we do. But I thought of something as you were talking about this. There's an element I want to throw out when you're talking about building out a team. There were a couple things that we needed that we haven't needed in the past, and we had to find, a new person or 2 to do those. But the rest, it's all people we've worked with. It's all people that we have established relationships with, and we are taking to the best ability that we have. We've taken all those people with us to the new thing. They're good. That's what happens when you do work so that somebody knows you're reliable, that they can trust you. Well, when something good happens to them, when a new opportunity happens for them, that's who they go to. That's who the team is. It's not like we even considered at any point, we need a few people. Let's go on, LinkedIn and post some ads and sort through some hopefuls. No. No, we look to the people who we know do very good work, who we can trust, who aren't going to let us down given this compressed schedule. That's how it pays off, right? So be one of those people. I've mentioned in the past, that's really how I started doing things for you.
I was going to say, you're the poster child for this. You're talking about yourself.
That's how it works.
Yeah,
that's how it works. But it's also how you got the vsauce.
It is
part.
It is. It's like exactly that. Same thing.
This is how it works. And that's why when you go on the Published Press this afternoon, you will see an article about popular science directly above another one. Let me focus in to see what this says. Rooster Teeth shuts down after 2 decades. Yeah, the article above that is about popular science. But this is the process, right? Whether it's somebody doing research stuff, editing. John is a fantastic editor who we've worked with for so long. I really can't emphasize it enough. I don't even have the words to emphasize this, that this is how it will work. You will get pulled up by other people, and then you will pull up other people too.
Right. Yeah, it is as simple as that. All right, guys, we have to go. I hope that you go check out Popular Science, because this is just the beginning. This is the launch. This is the announcement. This is us finally being able to talk about what we've been doing. And from here on out, we are just steamrolling really the best content that we can possibly muster on that channel. There'll still be uploads on vsauce 2. There's also the Mindblow channel. And then obviously we will be here for your earballs on the Create Unknown. If you want to support the podcast, please go to the Create Unknown or patreon.com/the Create Unknown. Thank you to all of our patrons for hanging out with us while we record always. And until then, next week, we will see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week, and the recent support has been amazing. Sid Poke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezer Good, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. Thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Farrakhan, Jen Mefisanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Peddler, Risebread, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Vidioger. And a tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang commanders: Atrocious Scuff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot, Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight, Vinthos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, Jelxies, and of course, Trevstead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer-editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yoshua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it. And a special thanks to Main Gear for powering all of our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.